AITA for letting my mom's sealed envelope expose my brother during her memorial lunch? I'm Chloe, 34, a middle daughter in a family that always acted like being difficult meant refusing to be useful on command. Dorian is my older brother. He is 39, polished in that oldest son way where people confuse a loud voice with leadership. He knew how to stand near a hospital bed when relatives were visiting and say, "We're doing everything we can." Then he would leave before the nurse came in with discharge instructions. I was the one getting the late-night calls. Not because I was sweeter. Not because I was more patient. I wasn't. I was just the one mom trusted when the panic got real and the performance stopped. I kept a folder of her medical bills in the same kitchen drawer where she used to hide birthday candles. I had screenshots of appointment reminders, pharmacy pickups, insurance notices, and texts from her saying things like, "Can you call them? Dorian says he will." But I don't think he understands what they need. In my family, being useful quietly never counted as love. It only counted when someone louder claimed credit for it. Dorian had been the golden child since we were kids. If he showed up late, he was busy. If I showed up tense, I was negative. If he forgot something, everyone said he had a lot on his plate. If I fixed what he forgot, I was accused of making people feel stupid. Mom was Inez. She was warm and stubborn and sentimental about strange things, like saving ribbon from gift bags or refusing to throw away old coffee mugs with chipped handles. When her health got worse, she tried to pretend she was just tired. Then tired became confused. Confused became scared. Scared became phone calls at 1:13 a.m. asking if she had paid the electric bill twice. Dorian loved the word coordinating. He would tell our Aunt Maribel, "I'm coordinating Mom's care," while I sat on hold with billing departments. He would tell our cousin Bram, "I'm handling the paperwork," after losing a medical authorization form that I had to drive over and replace. Once, after I spent an hour fixing a prescription issue because Dorian had entered the wrong date of birth on an online refill request, he walked into Mom's kitchen, saw me with paper spread across the table and said, "You always make everything sound harder than it is." I didn't even look up. That's because I'm the one doing it. Mom heard me from the living room and gave a tiny laugh. Dorian rolled his eyes like I had ruined the mood. That was our family pattern. Dorian got credit for being calm because he wasn't doing the part that made people anxious. I got called difficult because I asked where the documents were, why a bill had not been paid, and why money was missing from an account Mom used for home health expenses. The missing money was the first thing that changed Mom's face. It started small. A withdrawal she didn't remember approving. A check she said she had signed because Dorian told her it was just easier. A payment that didn't match the invoice on the fridge. When I asked about it, Dorian snapped, "Not everything needs a full investigation, Chloe." Mom said nothing, but later that night she called me. Her voice was low. "Don't bring up papers in the family chat anymore." I sat up in bed. "What papers?" "The ones I told you about. The revised trust packet. Mr. Calloway will explain when he needs to." "Mom, are you okay?" "I'm okay enough," she said, which was not an answer. Then she added, "Some people confuse being firstborn with being in charge." I wrote that down. I don't even know why. Maybe because by then I had learned that our family memories changed depending on who repeated them the loudest. A few weeks later, she left me a voicemail. I didn't listen to it right away because I called her back and she picked up. We talked about her laundry, a doctor's office that kept sending duplicate bills, and whether the lemon cake in her freezer was still good. I forgot about the voicemail until after she died. Mom passed on a gray morning that still feels like it belongs to somebody else. I was in the hallway outside her room, holding a paper cup of coffee that tasted burnt and cold at the same time. Dorian arrived 40 minutes later wearing a black jacket and a face that looked prepared. He hugged me in front of the nurse. "We'll get through this," he said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Then, before the afternoon was over, he had Mom's house keys, the garage safe combination, and the little blue folder she kept insurance papers in. I asked him, "Did Mom give you the safe code recently?" He gave me that older brother look, the one that said I was embarrassing myself by asking a basic question. "Chloe, not today. Today is exactly when we need to keep track." His jaw tightened. "This is why Mom didn't want you involved. You can't even grieve without counting things." I looked at the key ring in his hand. The small brass key for the storage unit was on it. So was the round silver key to the cedar chest Mom kept at the foot of her bed. Inventory is not greed, I said. It's procedure. Dorian walked away. That night, he posted in the family group chat. I'll be handling Mom's documents and property for now so nobody has to deal with extra stress. Please give Chloe space. She is emotional and not processing this well. I read that sentence 3 times while sitting on my kitchen floor with Mom's sympathy cards in a paper grocery bag beside me. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to reply with the appointment logs, the hospital discharge notes, the receipts for bills I had paid when Mom was too proud to ask anyone else. Instead, I took a screenshot. That became my rule. When they lied, I saved it first. Celine started texting me the next morning. Celine is Dorian's wife, 37, with perfect manners and a voice that always sounded like she was calming a child in public. People called her graceful. I called her dangerous once she thought she had the room. Her first message was soft. Chloe, we are all heartbroken. Dorian is overwhelmed. Maybe the loving thing right now is not to complicate the estate. I replied, send anything legal through Mr. Calloway. She waited 11 minutes. No one is trying to hurt you. But peace matters. Signing the waiver would show everyone you loved your mom more than money. I stared at the word waiver. What waiver? I typed. She answered with a heart emoji first, which made me want to throw my phone into a wall. Dorian can explain at the lunch. It is simple. Everyone already knows what your mom wanted. That was when my grief got quiet. Not better. Not smaller. Just quiet enough for me to hear the problem underneath it. Dorian was rushing. He had the keys. He had the old folders. He had the group chat. He had Celine polishing his threats until they sounded like concern. And now there was a waiver he wanted me to sign before I had even sat down with the estate attorney. I called Mr. Calloway's office that afternoon. He was 61, calm in a way that never felt warm but always felt steady. He had handled Mom's estate planning for years. His assistant put me through after I said, "This is Chloe. I need to know whether I should sign anything Dorian gives me." Mr. Calloway came on the line a minute later. "Do not sign any waiver, disclaimer, or family agreement outside my office." My hand tightened around the phone. So there is a reason he is rushing me. There was a pause. I would not disagree with that. Can you tell me what the current documents say? Not over the phone. There will be a formal meeting. Your mother left instructions, and I intend to follow them exactly. What kind of instructions? The kind that require everyone to stop improvising. That was the most emotional sentence I had ever heard from him. The memorial was 2 days later. We did the service first, then lunch in the church hall because that was what Mom had wanted. She had once said, "If people are going to cry over me, at least feed them properly." So there were foil-covered trays, a coffee urn that hissed every few minutes, paper plates bending under casseroles, and a table of sympathy cards nobody knew where to put. Dorian moved through the room like a campaign manager. He hugged relatives. He squeezed shoulders. He told people Mom went peacefully, even though he had not been there for the last bad hour. Celine stayed beside him in a black dress, touching his arm whenever he spoke too sharply, like she was keeping him noble. Aunt Maribel cornered me near the coffee. "Chloe," she said softly, "I know this is hard, but I hope you don't make things harder." I had barely slept. My chest felt hollow. "What did Dorian tell you?" She gave me a disappointed look. "That you're threatening to contest everything." I asked for an inventory. That may not be how he heard it. That is exactly how I wrote it. She sighed. "I thought you knew better than to do this now." That was the trick always. Dorian could do whatever he wanted immediately, but if I asked one careful question, my timing was cruel. Bram texted me while I was still standing in the room with him 15 feet away. "Come on, Chloe. Your mom just died. Don't make this about money." I looked over at him. He glanced down at his phone and pretended not to see me. I muttered, "You don't even know what he's asking me to sign." Then I screenshotted that too. I had brought my own folder. It was plain black with tabs I had written by hand. Medical, bank, texts, voicemail, inventory. I kept it in my bag under my chair. I had printed emails from Mom mentioning the revised trust packet. I had bank statements with withdrawals circled. I had photos from the family group chat where Celine had accidentally shown boxes in their garage, including Mom's small cedar chest, and a framed document that had been hanging in her hallway 2 days earlier. Dorian had posted the photo himself at first with the caption, "Sorting some of Mom's things so the house doesn't become overwhelming." Then he deleted it after I texted, "Please confirm nothing else will be removed before the official inventory." His reply had been, "Stop acting like a cop." Screenshot. The lunch had barely started when Celine placed a small stack of papers beside my plate. I looked at them, then at her. She smiled like we were discussing seating arrangements. "Just so we can avoid ugliness. I'm not signing grief paperwork at a lunch table." Dorian heard that. Of course he did. He wanted to. He stood near the end of the table, lifted his folder, and raised his voice. "Everyone, I hate to do this today." That was when every person in the room looked at us. I knew exactly what he was doing. He had chosen an audience because he thought I would either explode and prove his point or fold because Mom's memorial lunch was too sacred to fight in. He did not understand that I had spent years learning how to sit still while being misrepresented. Dorian opened his folder. Mom knew who showed up. She made sure the paperwork reflected that. The room went so quiet I could hear someone set down a plastic fork. He looked right at me. "Chloe has been trying to insert herself into the estate process. She barely came around when it mattered, but now that there are assets, suddenly she wants procedure." Heat climbed up my neck, but I kept my hands flat on my lap. Celine leaned forward. "Maybe this is the time to be graceful, Chloe. Not greedy." A few relatives looked down. Maribel pressed her lips together. Bram watched like he hated himself for being interested. Dorian pulled out a copy of a will. "You were written out for a reason." My stomach dropped for half a second. Not because I believed him. Because even when you know someone is lying, hearing the whole room inhale like they believe it still hurts. Then I saw the date on the top page. It was old. Older than Mom's email about the revised trust packet. Older than the voicemail. Older than the bank envelope Mr. Calloway had mentioned without naming. I lifted my eyes. Mr. Calloway was seated near the far end of the room with a leather folder on the table in front of him. He had not touched his coffee. He was watching Dorian the way a man watches someone step onto thin ice after being warned. Dorian pushed the papers toward me. "Sign the waiver. Show some respect." I slid them back without picking up the pen. Mom wouldn't want forged peace either. His face hardened. "This is why nobody wanted you handling anything. You turn everything into a fight." "No," I said. "I turn missing property into an inventory request." Celine's smile faded for the first time. Dorian laughed once, sharp and ugly. "Listen to yourself. Mom is gone, and you're circling like a vulture." That was the sentence. Not because it was the cruelest thing he had ever said. It wasn't. But because he said it in the room where people had just eaten food in Mom's honor, surrounded by her sympathy cards, using everyone's grief like a wall to pin me against. I reached into my bag and put my black folder on the table. The sound was small. It still changed the room. "You wanted everyone here to judge me," I said. "Good. Then they can hear the whole story." Dorian rolled his eyes. "Oh, here we go. I'm not here to fight over what isn't mine. I'm here to stop you from stealing what is." Maribel whispered, "Chloe." I opened the medical tab first. Not the bank tab. Not the estate tab. I started with the lie underneath his performance. "This is the shared calendar for Mom's appointments for the last 18 months, I said. "These are the reminders I set. These are the discharge instructions I signed for when Dorian left before the nurse came back. These are the prescription receipts. These are the bills I paid and emailed him about." Dorian scoffed. "Anyone can print papers." "Correct," I said. "Which is why they have dates, confirmation numbers, and replies." Bram leaned forward despite himself. I slid one page toward Maribel. "You texted Dorian last fall thanking him for coordinating Mom's procedure. He had the wrong day. I was the one who took her." Maribel's face went pale as she read the page. I opened the text tab. "This is Dorian telling me I was being dramatic about the missing insurance form. This is Mom texting me 30 minutes later asking if I could fix it because he left." Dorian's voice rose. "You saved private messages to humiliate me?" I looked at him. No. I saved private messages because you rewrite public history. That landed harder than I expected. Someone near the coffee urn murmured. Oh. Celine reached for the papers near my plate. This still doesn't change what your mother wanted. No, Mr. Calloway said. It was the first time he had spoken. His voice was not loud, but everyone stopped moving. He stood, buttoned his jacket, and picked up the leather folder. No one should sign anything at this table. Dorian's mouth tightened. Mr. Calloway, with respect, we are trying to avoid a legal mess. With respect, Mr. Calloway replied, you are creating one. A strange silence followed. It was not dramatic. It was worse. It was the kind of silence where people realize the polite version of events has cracked. Mr. Calloway walked to the center of the table and removed a sealed bank envelope from his folder. Mom's handwriting was on the front. For Chloe, but not alone. My throat closed. He placed it in front of me but kept his hand lightly on top of it. Your mother instructed that this envelope and the accompanying documents be reviewed with the immediate family present if there was any dispute regarding her estate plan or your involvement. Dorian barked a laugh. This is ridiculous. She was confused near the end. Mr. Calloway did not react. Your mother signed the relevant amendment after a capacity review and independent witness statements. Dorian froze for one beat too long. Celine recovered first. I'm sure nobody is questioning her capacity. We're just saying Chloe had access. She could have influenced. Mrs. Celine, Mr. Calloway said, still painfully calm. The record also includes written notes from your mother expressing concern that Dorian was pressuring her to remove Chloe from documents. The room shifted toward Dorian without anyone standing up. He pointed at me. She got to Mom. Mr. Calloway opened the folder. The document Mr. Dorian has been referencing is not the controlling document for these assets. Dorian's face flushed. That will is real. Yes, Mr. Calloway said. It is real. It is also outdated, and it does not control the trust assets or the updated beneficiary designations your mother completed later. Bram sat back. Wait, you told us she wasn't mentioned at all. Dorian snapped. Stay out of this. Bram looked around the table, then back at him. No, seriously. Which part did you leave out? For the first time all day, Dorian had no smooth answer. Mr. Calloway removed several documents and laid them on the table one at a time. A trust amendment. An updated beneficiary form. A notarized letter. Copies of witness signatures. Each page felt heavier than the last. Your mother appointed Chloe to manage specific trust assets and personal property distribution, he said. She also removed Dorian from executor control in the related documents because of concerns regarding undue pressure and unexplained financial withdrawals. The words were so precise they almost sounded unreal. Unexplained financial withdrawals. I had not imagined them. Mom had seen them. She had documented them. Dorian's chair scraped the floor as he stood. That is not what happened. Mr. Calloway looked at him. Then the account review will be helpful. Celine's hand went to Dorian's sleeve, but this time it was not graceful. It was a warning. Maribel's voice shook. Dorian, why would you say she was never there if these receipts are real? He didn't answer her. He looked at me like I had betrayed him by refusing to stay buried under the version of me he preferred. You always do this, he said. You make yourself the victim. No, I said. You made me the villain because it gave you cover. I touched the sealed envelope. May I open it? Mr. Calloway nodded. Yes. My hands were steady until I saw Mom's handwriting again on the folded letter inside. Then they shook. The letter was short. Mom had never liked long emotional declarations on paper. She preferred to say the important things while pretending to talk about something else. Mr. Calloway read the legal parts first. He said Mom had requested that any estate communication go through his office if Dorian attempted to pressure me into signing anything without counsel. He confirmed that property removed before inventory had to be returned, listed, photographed, and accounted for. He said missing items and withdrawals could become part of a court filing if they were not resolved. Then I opened the voicemail tab in my folder. I have something else, I said. Dorian's eyes narrowed. Of course you do. It's Mom. That shut him up. I looked at Mr. Calloway. Is it okay? He said. If you are comfortable. I was not comfortable. I was grieving. I was angry. I was about to play my dead mother's voice in a room full of people who had let my brother call me a vulture over casseroles and coffee. But comfort had never protected me in that family. Proof had. I pressed play. Mom's voice came through my phone, thin but clear. Chloe, honey, if Dorian makes you look greedy, show them this. He already asked me to remove you twice. Both times I said no. He thinks if he says something loud enough, people will call it leadership. Don't argue with him alone. Keep copies. And do not sign anything just because they say peace. Nobody moved. The voicemail continued. I love him. I do. But I don't trust what he becomes when money is involved. Mr. Calloway has the packet. The bank envelope is for when you need them to hear me instead of him. The message ended with a small breath and then Mom saying softer, and eat something today. You forget when you're upset. That broke me more than the legal documents did. I looked down because I refused to cry for Dorian's benefit, but tears came anyway. Not loud ones. Just enough to blur the paper in front of me. Maribel covered her mouth. Bram whispered, Jesus. Dorian shook his head. She was paranoid. Mr. Calloway said, your mother's concerns were consistent over several meetings. Celine's polished face changed. Not collapsed. She was too controlled for that. It sharpened. This is still ugly, she said. You're doing this at her memorial. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. You put a waiver beside my plate. Her eyes flicked to the papers. I opened the text tab and slid 3 pages toward Mr. Calloway, though he already had copies because I had emailed them earlier. These are Celine's messages telling me signing would prove I loved Mom more than money. This one says everyone already knew what Mom wanted, before I had reviewed any final paperwork. This one says, Grace looks better than greed, Chloe. Bram looked at Celine. You knew she hadn't seen the documents? Celine's mouth opened, then closed. Dorian snapped. Everyone is twisting this. No, Maribel said quietly. You twisted it first. That surprised me. Maribel had been so committed to keeping things peaceful that I thought she would sit in denial until the floor swallowed her. But she was looking at the photo I had printed from the group chat. Is that her cedar chest? She asked. Dorian's face went blank. I turned the inventory tab toward her. Yes. It was in their garage before the official inventory. Celine said quickly. We were keeping things safe. Then why delete the photo? Bram asked. Dorian glared at him. Since when are you the prosecutor? Since you made us the jury, Bram said. That was the moment Dorian lost the room. Not legally. Mr. Calloway had already handled that. Dorian lost the room socially, which mattered more to him. He could survive paperwork. He could argue numbers. He could tell himself lawyers were biased and documents were misunderstood. What he could not stand was relatives looking at him with suspicion instead of admiration. Mr. Calloway gathered the loose papers into neat stacks. From this point forward, all estate communication goes through my office. Dorian, you will return all keys, access codes, documents, and any property removed from your mother's residence or storage before inventory. The inventory will be formal. Items will be listed, photographed, and signed for. If the account review shows unexplained transfers that are not resolved, they may become part of a court filing. Dorian sat down slowly. You can't just take me out of this. Your mother already did, Mr. Calloway said. It was not cruel. It was worse. It was accurate. I picked up the waiver Celine had put beside my plate and handed it to Mr. Calloway. I won't sign anything from Dorian or Celine. Not today. Not later. If something needs my attention, it goes through you. Appropriate, he said. Then I looked around the table. My relatives suddenly found napkins, coffee cups, plates, anything to stare at except me. I knew some of them were ashamed. I also knew shame is not the same as accountability. I'm done letting silence make me look guilty, I said. If anyone repeats that I abandoned Mom, I will send the full timeline. If anyone claims I'm contesting things because I'm greedy, I will send the documents. If Dorian or Celine contact me directly about the estate again, I'll forward it to Mr. Calloway. Celine's voice went low. That sounds like a threat. No, I said. It's a boundary with attachments. Bram made a sound that was almost a laugh, then stopped when Dorian looked at him. Maribel stood up. She walked to the coffee table, then back like she needed a task but could not find one. Finally she said, Chloe, I didn't know. I believed that. I also knew she had not tried very hard to know. I said, you could have asked. Her eyes filled. You're right. That was all I wanted from her in that moment. Not a hug. Not a speech. Just the end of pretending she had been helpless against Dorian's version. Dorian shoved his folder into his bag. You're going to regret doing this in front of everyone. I looked at the sympathy card stacked beside the coffee urn. Mom's name was written on almost every envelope. You did this in front of everyone. He had no answer to that either. The lunch ended strangely. Nobody knew how to leave a room after watching a family myth get pulled apart page by page. People cleared plates too loudly. Someone wrapped casserole in foil with shaking hands. Bram offered to carry trash bags, which was probably the first useful thing he had done all week. Mr. Calloway asked me to step aside before I left. You handled yourself well, he said. I wiped under one eye with my thumb. I didn't feel like it. Those are not always related. He gave me a list of next steps. Formal inventory. Account review. No direct signatures. No informal agreements. Return of property. Written communication only. It was not a victory parade. It was paperwork. But for once paperwork was on my side. Dorian returned the house keys 2 days later through Mr. Calloway's office. Not to me. He would never give me the satisfaction of watching him hand them over. The storage unit key came in a padded envelope. The cedar chest was returned with a scratch down one side and none of the apology that should have come with it. The account review took longer. I will not pretend it turned into some instant courtroom scene where a judge slammed a gavel and everyone clapped. Real consequences are slower and more boring. Receipts had to be matched. Transfers had to be explained. Items had to be photographed. Mr. Calloway's office sent letters that used words like provide documentation and failure to comply, which sounded dull until I imagined Dorian reading them at his kitchen table with Celine standing over his shoulder. The missing watch came back after Maribel asked about it twice. So did Mom's framed nursing certificate, which Dorian claimed he had taken for safekeeping. The cedar chest had old letters, a church cookbook, 2 broken watches, and the kind of tiny keepsakes nobody fights over unless they are trying to control the memory of the person who died. Maribel brought me one of Mom's scarves a week later. She stood at my door holding it in both hands. I found this in a bag Dorian gave me, she said. He told me you didn't want personal things. I took the scarf. It still smelled faintly like Mom's dresser drawer, lavender and old paper. I never said that. I know that now. She looked like she wanted to say more. Maybe she wanted me to make it easier for her. I didn't. Finally she said, Dorian made it sound like you were counting money before she was even buried. I was counting keys, I said, because he had all of them. Maribel nodded. I should have asked. Yes, I said. You should have. That became the shape of most apologies after that. Small, awkward, incomplete. Bram texted first. I should have asked you before I texted that. I replied yes. You should have. He sent back fair. Then, a minute later. Also Dorian is telling people Mr. Calloway ambushed him. I typed. Then he should enjoy my cease and desist attachment. I had not actually sent one yet. Mr. Calloway had drafted a warning that if Dorian continued spreading false claims about me manipulating Mom or stealing from the estate, we would respond with the documented timeline and consider further action. I did not want to use it. But I liked knowing it existed. That was the strange thing about finally having proof. I did not become louder. I became less available. Dorian did try to contact me directly once. You really want to destroy the family over paperwork? I forwarded it to Mr. Calloway without answering. Celine sent one message from her own phone 2 days later. I hope someday you understand how much pain you caused by making private things public. I stared at it for a long time, not because it hurt, but because it was so perfectly Celine. She had set papers next to my plate at Mom's memorial lunch. She had called me greedy in front of relatives. She had pushed me to sign away rights I had not reviewed. But the moment her texts became evidence, privacy became sacred. I forwarded that too. After that, silence. Not peaceful silence. Not healed silence. Just the kind that happens when people realize every message might be printed. The estate process kept moving. I received what Mom intended for me to receive. I also had to manage things I wish she had been alive to explain herself. There were accounts, property decisions, sentimental items, forms, signatures, and questions that made me miss her so sharply I had to sit down sometimes. Grief did not become easier just because Dorian was exposed. That part matters. Winning a fight over the truth does not make your mother less dead. It just means you do not have to mourn her while swallowing a lie about yourself. Some relatives still keep their distance. I let them. People who enjoyed the gossip when I was the villain did not get instant access once the story changed. A few tried to act like the memorial lunch had simply been a misunderstanding. It was not. A misunderstanding is when someone gets the time wrong. Dorian built a stage, handed me a pen, and tried to make my silence look like guilt. Celine smiled beside him and called it peace. The room let it happen until Mom's own documents made denial uncomfortable. I do not hate Dorian in the dramatic way people expect. Hate takes more energy than I want to spend on him. What I feel is cleaner than that. I do not trust him. I do not protect his image. I do not soften what he did so other people can feel less embarrassed for believing him. There is a difference between revenge and a record. I did not expose Dorian because I enjoyed humiliating him. I exposed him because he used a room full of grieving people as a weapon and expected me to keep bleeding quietly so everyone else could call it family. The last time I went through Mom's kitchen drawer, I found the birthday candles under a stack of old receipts, exactly where she always kept them. The medical bill folder was still there too. For a second I stood there with both in my hands, candles in one, proof in the other, and I almost laughed because that was Mom. Sentimental and practical. Frosting and paperwork. I put the candles in the cedar chest. I kept the folder. Not because I planned to fight forever. Because I had learned the cost of being the only person in the room with a memory nobody wanted to verify. Dorian lost control of the estate process. Celine lost her polished little role as the reasonable outsider. Relatives lost the comfort of pretending I was difficult for no reason. And I lost the need to convince people who had already decided I was easier to blame. I didn't win because I inherited more. I won because for once the truth had paperwork. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.